Here we are again, friends. Here we are again. Shadow School. Time to dive in. Let's get to it. Today we are exploring Gene Key 16 with the Shadow of Indifference, the Gift of Versatility, and the Siddhi or Divine Gift of Mastery with the dilemma of laziness. And we've been a bit of a slog here. The last couple days we've been talking about compromise, dullness, indifference. Indifference is this, according to the Gene Key, is really pervasive force. It's a really powerful force that keeps us from perceiving a higher reality. So you can imagine when you're sitting in indifference, it's just like you're not bothered by anything. Like you just don't care. There's like a resignation in there. Like you can't be moved or compelled or motivated to change anything, take action on anything, create anything, show up a certain way, change your attitude like we were talking about yesterday, the dullness. This laziness is not a laziness of like ease and luxurious resting. It's a laziness of like you just can't be bothered to actually show up and be the change that the people around you in the world needs so desperately. And so we can only perceive a higher reality from here. Like we can't even see it. There's so much force of indifference around us and the entire society we're in, but we also can't see the higher potential of ourselves there. There's no possibility in indifference when we're living in indifference. And it's because we're not seeing our true nature. Neither is the collective. We don't realize that we are all one holistic entity. We don't realize how much possibility there is, how much we do have power to shape our reality for the better with more love and less fear. This Gene Key 16 is really related to skills in general and being good at things and having gifts and becoming more natural, mastery over time, which we'll explore. And I have studied this Gene Key quite a bit. It's not in my chart, my hologenetic profile. However, it is in my human design chart and it comes through 3 times, the 16 does. And I feel very connected to this one because of the work that I've been doing in the last, well, honestly, my whole life, but especially the last like 10 or so years. It's been so focused on my own learning, driving toward learning, gathering more certifications, taking courses and programs, going on the path of betterment and personal development, and always finding new things for me to learn and grow and use, work with new skills. And there are a lot of traps there along the way in the shadow of indifference. And so I want to really dig in and explore with you because I feel like I've definitely sat in this shadow. I've sat in this Gene Key for quite a while now. And it's only, recent that in fits and spurts, I've like shared what I've learned or shown up and like really applied it in certain ways, certainly in my job, but not like this. Not like on Shadow School where I'm actually showing up as a leader, sharing my voice, sharing what I've learned in a way that isn't so prescriptive and dogmatic and structured. Like we're just kind of free flowing here. And it's taken me a long time to get there and to feel comfortable and to see how I'm different in a way that allows me to move out of the indifference of the shadow. As the Gene Key says, as long as you are indifferent, you can never be different. So in essence, it's saying that we can't change or grow or learn or evolve if we're stuck in this laziness, this indifference, this just doesn't matter, don't care. Somebody else will take care of that over there. That problem's not mine to deal with, this indifference. But the issue is to find anything that we are fantastic at in life, to grow into our gifts, to recognize our uniqueness, to live a life of purpose and fulfillment, we actually have to step out of the shadow, and we have to recognize that we can learn and grow, evolve, and change and start to embody these things that do then have us show up as being different and serving others. But what we get trapped in here with indifference is an energy field. So sit with me for a second and contemplate this. Just visualize, if you're a visualizing person, that we get stuck in this energy field that has us focus all of our precious time and awareness on things that are inessential. And we get so busy and bogged down with the tiny, the small. Remember, we talked about like the taming power of the small a couple of gene keys ago, where it's just all of the inessential is clouding our days. It's filling up our days. It's taking from our time and our effort and our attention and our awareness. And as a result, we get so overwhelmed where there is no energy left for caring, for changing things, for making things different, for being different. And all that energy is kind of expressed and is just like sucked out of us through all the minutia of life, all this inessential stuff, the stuff that's actually not important that we're distracted by. And this inessential stuff is not necessarily the mundane, like we were talking about with dullness yesterday. It's not the things in our lives like washing the dishes. That's not necessarily what I mean by inessential or like the little stuff. Inessential here is anything that takes your attention away from the present moment and its potential. So you can see the discernment here of the doing the dishes. Like, let's say you're standing here doing the dishes with your partner. Being present in that moment, there is an opportunity for growth, for transformation, for change, for connection, for creation, for so many things to happen there. That present moment is ripe with possibility, even if you're doing something simple and repetitive in your life, like washing the dishes, standing next to someone else. There's potential in that present moment, no matter what the present moment is focused on. But what we get stuck in here with indifference in this field of energy is that everything takes us out of being able to be in the present moment. And that's the field of indifference here. This is what the world looks like when love is excluded, is how the Gene Keys describes it. What's happening here, though, really, is that we're kind of like wasting our potential. We're wasting our own potential and our talent and our gifts and our genius, but we're also wasting the potential of that present moment, of what else is around us in that present moment that has so much possibility and potential. What we find here is that as we step into genius and take on more purpose through our being, as the Gene Keys likes to look at purpose, it's not something that you do, it's not something out here, it's the unique quality and essence that you bring to everything that you do, uniquely in your own way. What the shadow of indifference has us face and contemplate and look at is that we can never actually be in our genius until we're ready to move toward and work with and embrace that thing that does make us actually different and unique, the thing that we're really good at compared to others, the thing that we uniquely have. And it may be a combination of qualities. It might not be just like one thing. It's your unique combination of qualities or things, skills that you have. Until we're ready to actually embrace that and move into the being different with that, we're stuck here in kind of this paralysis. And we have, on a collective level, a lot of people experiencing this state of indifference or paralysis, or the Gene Keys puts it kind of like we have a bunch of zombies or automatons just walking around. We're like living in the matrix. We're doing things that are inessential. We're totally not attached, or not attached is the word. We're not aware of the present moment that we are in and the possibility that exists inside of that present moment for us and the world. one of the concepts here that the Gene Keys offers is this idea of diffusion of responsibility. Now, diffusion of responsibility is a social psychology concept where, and it's usually brought to life where there's some like atrocity happening, like something bad is happening, and there's a group of people around, and we're all watching it instead of doing something about it. Like a woman is getting her purse stolen, or someone is beating someone else up, and we're all standing there like, who's going to do something? And 5 people are filming it with their phone instead of doing something about it. And like on and on and on, and there's just like a whole crowd around people to help, and no one is actually doing anything to help the situation. That is the diffusion of responsibility. And what that concept points to is that we're all kind of just assuming someone else will take care of it. And when there are more and more people involved in this shared situation, the less responsible we personally feel for taking on and making an impact with the change. We feel like, yeah, all these other people will figure it out. Someone else will figure it out. That's not my problem to worry about. But when we start to look at bigger collective issues that we all are sitting in this diffusion of responsibility around, like the climate, like the issues capitalism creates. Like, for example, what happened in Ohio with the train accident and all of the poison being poured into the environment. We have a lot of people who are suffering. We have a lot of people who are in outrage. And there are a lot of us that are experiencing diffusion of responsibility. Someone else will take care of that. It's not in my immediate environment. I might be aware of it on social media or, whatever it is, but it's not necessarily like right in my personal face or space. So it's not fully impacting me. There are a lot of other people that are far more impacted by it and closer to it and have more tools and ability to make an impact. I'm sure they'll handle it. That's this diffusion of responsibility. And that in large part is what anchors in and creates this shadow at the collective level of indifference. It's our tendency to look away when confronted by a distress, by an issue. And it's often worse when there are more and more people involved and they're looking at the same problem. This means that people get away with a lot of shit. This means corporations get away with a lot of shit. There is no mechanism where we're holding anyone or anything accountable. And I don't mean blaming. I don't mean punishing. I don't mean justice and jail and all of these things that actually just perpetuate the same old bullshit. I mean accountability, responsibility. There's no one just simply saying like, hey, what the actual heck, in a way that actually changes what's going on. There are certainly a lot of people voicing their opinions about it, but not where it actually counts. So here we have to actually transcend our fears around stepping forward, around being the one to take on the issue. And that issue could be something we're collectively facing, but it can also more intimately be something that is in your own life. Where are you having indifference in your own life? In your own tiny world you've created for yourself, in your own reality? Where is indifference present around the contribution you're making and your work? Where is it around the nature of the relationships that you have? Where is it around how you cultivate personal care and love and trust and connection with yourself and in your body? Where have you allowed this indifference of like, I'll get to it later, or somebody else can take care of that, or I need someone else to help me take care of this? And we've resigned ourselves to just be in this state where there isn't even a potential of making things different. We have to transcend the fear that we are incapable, that we are not able to, that we don't have enough, whatever it takes to be different, to make the change, to have the shift. And when we confront that fear, we instantly become more capable. Capability is a combination of our ability to do something, but it's also our confidence. It's our ability, or it's our belief in our ability to do something. And capability also has in it a very future focus. So it has an open-ended possibility angle. So we can have competence, which is about ability, and it's a proven, like ability for us to do something. We know how to do it. We have the skills to do it. That's in there. That's in it. It's ability is part of capability. But what we're capable of has a possibility in it that we don't yet know. And so capability has this open door in itself, in the word. And when we confront our fears here, we move out of indifference, we instantly become more able and more confident. It's more possible for us to be different. It's more possible for us to be in our ability, to grow our ability. And it helps us overcome this sense of lethargy, this kind of like zombie automaton running on automatic, like no possible potential in the real present moment. That prevents us from, as the Gene Keys puts it, making something truly beautiful in your life. And that could mean any number of things. It does not need to be some far-reaching global impact change to solve a problem of humanity. It can be fostering one relationship in your community. It can be you actually being fully expressed and living toward your dreams. Overcoming the lethargy that prevents you from making something truly beautiful in your life. That is what happens when we move out of the shadow of indifference. But we have a lot of excuses. We don't have any time. We don't know how. We're not ready. Like there never is a ready, right? There never is a ready. There's never enough time. We bend all of these things to our will. And in the shadow, we see them as excuses and obstacles and roadblocks. These things of, I'm not ready. I have no time. I don't have money. I don't have blah, 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 blah. We can keep going, keep going, keep going. What we do here, though, is that we're making ourselves a victim of time, of whatever it is, resources, a victim of the mind and its rationalizations. We're not looking at what's possible. We're stuck in the fear here. It will be hard. I don't believe in myself is basically what we're saying there. But the moment that we take a stand to follow our dreams and we start to take action, time ends up becoming our ally. We can bend these things through our willpower to be different, to be perceived different by us in the moment. Time is a wackadoodle concept that we have as humans, but I'm sure we've all experienced moments in our life when time is sped up, moments in our life when time is slowed down, moments in our life when time doesn't seem to exist, moments in it like when we expand time and it feels like a tiny second pause in a conversation lasts a lifetime. We are creators here. So if our view of time is we don't have enough, we don't have time, we can't get to it, there's never enough time, there's never enough time. That creates our reality. But here, if we can start to move out of indifference toward living our purpose and our dreams, we can make time our ally rather than our enemy. Let's talk a little bit about, this is the concept that came through here. For this particular gene key, the elixir of sorts to indifference is enthusiasm. And this is a force, this enthusiasm that helps us create momentum. There's a rush of energy. There's a creative spark here with enthusiasm. There is excitement, upward energy, momentum, and it can like snap us out of this automatic, frozen, zombie-like robot, indifferent shell of ourselves and bring us into a very different pattern where we're actually pursuing our uniqueness, where we're showing up and creating our skills and gifts in the world. And this enthusiasm requires that we have an experience rather than dreaming about an experience, thinking about an experience, talking about the experience. So this is the difference where we are actually on the field in the arena, even if we don't feel like we have time, we don't feel like we're ready, we're not prepared, doesn't matter. Like get on the field, start to take action, doing things, having experiences, talking to other humans about the things you want to create. Don't get stuck there, but we need to start to create momentum. Share your ideas with others. This can spark more enthusiasm, more curiosity, more ideas. It starts to snowball and enthusiasm expands and grows. And this becomes the elixir to indifference. But it requires that we actually go about having and creating an experience instead of thinking about or wishing about or dreaming about potentially having that experience some other time. So much can unfold if we're actually out creating something in the world. I want to talk about skills because that's really what this gene key is, like one of the foundations that it's rooted in. As we move into the gift of versatility and the Siddhi of Mastery, it's very clear kind of like how skills come to life. In this shadow of indifference, there is a pursuit of expertise, of deep, focused expertise in something, because that's the path that's been created for us in the society that we have. You get really good at a certain thing. And not only do you get good at it, but you have credentials and degrees and certifications. And I've got a whole trunk load of them over here. And what happens is we get really stuck in the structures, the frameworks, the ways we're supposed to use the skills, the way we've been taught to use the skills, the way that the experts that created it use the skills. And so that's how we have to show up and do it. And what this does is it creates this very narrow field of expertise where we value more the structure of the actual expression of the skill instead of the ability itself, instead of the magic that lives inside of the naturalness of expressing the skill. And what happens is that these certifications, techniques, tools, structures actually begin to trap us because we get to be rigid inside of them and we start to identify with them. They become limiting to us and like very clunky when we go deep in one area. And what happens is there's compromise there. We are trying to fit ourselves into the mold of this other structure, of this system, of this skill someone else has invented. We think in order for us to be good at it, to master it, to use it in the world, to work with it, to bring it to life, we have to be just like that. So we have this model of excellence and what it's supposed to look like, and then we are taught to emulate that exactly for efficacy, for efficiency, and for, what do we want to say? Like high fidelity of making sure that you're using the frameworks correctly and all of this stuff someone else has created. But there's so much pinup energy there. There are so much possibility, potential, naturalness, uniqueness of how you could express and work with the information or the skills that you've acquired in your own way that we're missing. So we're getting like trapped here into like a tiny box. And again, we have this like compromise. We have a lack of courage to step forward, really owning something in our own way. This is definitely an area where I have danced in the past. Pursuing the right degree, just having the right knowledge of how to do something, knowing exactly which steps to take and following them to a T, using the structure of someone else's modality for healing or whatever that might be. And then feeling like, I don't know, am I allowed to make this my own? Do I know it enough? Have I followed it enough with uh, high fidelity such that I could play with it and make it my own? Am I allowed to make it my own based on the logistics and the licensing and all the nonsense that we've constructed that doesn't need to exist? Do I feel like I really have embodied it enough to make it my own? Like, that's another one, like, I'm not ready yet, right? Or like, I haven't worked with this long enough, or I don't know it intimately enough to really work with it in my own natural way. And so we get trapped here in these systems and structures. We get trapped in our techniques, and they begin to limit us. And the indifference comes to life in the fact that we don't have the courage or the enthusiasm to break through, to actually be different, to work with these things in our own unique way. All right, let's talk about this. We have, of course, a repressive and a reactive expressive state inside of the shadow of indifference. In the repressive state, which is all about an introverted energy expression where we're kind of sunken in, there's a collapse of energy and life force from the externality of our life that fades in and kind of collapses in on us. And here, this is called gullible. That's the keynote for this particular state in indifference. And here, people are victims of mass propaganda of the collective. They buy into and they believe in whatever they are told, whatever the party line is, whatever is shown through mass media and propaganda, through whatever the popular collective beliefs and assumptions about something are. And as a result, they hide behind this shield of the collective view of something. It's like group think on steroids here. And in their indifference, remember, we go back to this like diffusion of responsibility. It's like, oh, well, there's a shield here. This is there's a way of seeing the world and a way that we do things here. And I'm going to believe in that. It feels safer for me to buy into that because it seems like everybody else is buying into that. So I'm going to buy into that. And then I'm just going to like safely tuck myself away back in here. But what happens is that this starts to foster weakness and powerlessness. This is when we have a culture of enablement instead of empowerment. When we're buying into something without actually having any critical thought about it, this gullibility coming through, without questioning and having an inquiry around, is this right? Is that right for me? Does this feel true for me? Does this feel true in general? What am I actually seeing? What is my lived experience as it relates to this concept or this collective idea that's being shared or believed in? And we lose inner authority because we give our power away to what is being propagated out in the world. Mass media here creates a really negative conditioning field. So it's like, even if you did try to have your own independent thoughts, there is such an overwhelming field of energy and a cycle around constantly consuming and putting out into the world this information that just keeps the cycle going. So it's just like a conditioning field that we're living in, right? It's like a full-on illusion. And when we're living here in indifference and gullibility, we have a tendency to bury our head in the sand. So this is where people are like, oh my God, not only do I not feel equipped, like I could actually make a difference on changing this thing that's happened over here. I'm sure somebody else will take care of it, but I need to like actively just like pretend like, this is not happening. I'm going to go ahead, like bury my head in the sand. I might even turn off the television for a while because there's so much that I just don't even feel equipped to even have in my realm, let alone feel like I could deal with. And so there starts to become this belief that nothing can be done. Again, another layer of loss of empowerment. And the question is, who am I to help? Who am I to change things? We don't see ourselves as different. We don't see ourselves as having power, of having potential, of having capability to actually be the change, make a difference, make the change. That's what the repressive state of gullible looks like. Then we have the reactive expression, which is more extroverted. It's externally focused. There's usually a lot of anger associated with it. It's projected outwardly into the world. And here we have the reactive state of self-deluded for the shadow of indifference. And when people are in this state or expression, they hide their fear with obsession with structure, systems, and techniques. We talked about this a little bit with how we tend to value these structures, systems, techniques, skills that we learn from others more than we have the ability in the shadow to say, I'm going to take a taste of this and a taste of this and a taste of this and blend it together and use it in my own unique way because I'm a creator here and I can do whatever the heck I want and I can create whatever change that I want. And I have power to shape the world and my reality. Nope, we're not looking at it this way. Here, we're like, oh my gosh, the world is chaos. The world is crumbling. Somebody else is going to handle this, but what I'm going to do, you know what I'm going to do to solve everything? I'm going to dig even deeper into my structures, systems, and techniques. I'm going to get really good at things because one day maybe I'll go do something with that over here, but I'm not ready yet. And I don't have the time to deal with it right now. Right now I'm focused on this work project. And so I'm just going to pour my energy into getting really good at this one thing. Maybe that can help something later, but really it's for serving me right now and giving me some semblance of safety and stability and certainty in my life. They get so identified with structures, they can't remember the reason for the structure. So this is like we get so absorbed and bought into the way to do something, the right way to do something, the prescribed steps of how to do something. And then like, meanwhile, we don't even remember why are we trying to fix this problem? Is this even the problem to solve? We don't know. We're so like completely detached from purpose and intention that we get like caught up in these structures. And what we have here is self-delusion. So self-deluded, where we build mental walls around ourselves that keep others, that keep the world locked out. And where in the repressive state, people were gullible to the conditioning field around them. Here in the self-deluded reactive state, because of the mental walls and the structures that have become so rigid and important and foundational to the perception of this self, what happens is they become gullible to their own propaganda. So the mental structures, the reasons, the skills, the techniques, it all becomes fodder for them buying even more into the ingrained way of how they see things. And so here, there's no perception of what's going on around them. Again, they're keeping the others in the world locked out, which means they can't enter, but also they can't really see over these walls either. And so they're just kind of like buying into their own story over and over and over and over again, convinced by their minds. And there's huge amounts of anger lurking in here. They're feeling probably very self-justified from this castle fortress they've built for themselves around their structures and their skills and their, systems and their rigid ways of believing and looking at the world, and also knowing like these things can't be fixed and those things can't be fixed. And I'm not here to fix any of these things. I'm going to dive even further and just really good at this thing. I'm not ready to go deal with that yet. And then there's just like a whole story that compounds in there. That's the reactive state, self-deluded. So that's all about the shadow of indifference. The 16 shadow puts all of its emphasis on skills, techniques, and systems rather than on the human spirit that enlivens them. We get addicted to information and techniques, which creates experts that remain indifferent and lack enthusiasm. So we are going through the motions, we are learning the systems and structures, we're investing in more systems and structures. We think those are the answers, when really what we are missing is the unique human spirit that breathes life into, that enlivens skills, structures, systems in a way that actually brings humans onto the map. Like, we're not machines. We're not just these logical minds that need to create the separation and these rigid structures on top of the chaos and the natural rhythms of life as a means to control it. So as we move out of the shadow of indifference into the gift of versatility, here enthusiasm is unleashed. Enthusiasm is kind of the bridge that gets us there, but it's really unleashed here. And what it unleashes is the skill of versatility. Skill becomes versatility. So in the shadow, we had specific skills that we could use in specific ways according to these rules, systems, structures, processes, whatever it was. When we move into the gift of versatility, it's much more about the expression and aliveness of the human spirit that takes on the skill or works with the system or a structure, but does it in their own way. So here we see multifaceted, multimodality, polymathic expression of concepts, modalities, and techniques. Here is where we see blending and overlapping and adjusting and taking two skills and melding them together. You know, maybe it's like to just go down like the spiritual technique path. It's holotropic breath work and yoga nidra, and those things go together. Or it's yoga and twerking, or it's, do you see, like, skills and modalities, but we're not stuck in a process of yoga has to look like this and it can only be practiced in this way in this structure by these people and I have to follow these rigid rules. It's like, oh babe, no. Here in versatility, we play with yoga. We play with yoga and dance and art and music and like creating businesses and doing whatever and changing the world and showing up as our own unique expression that gets to dabble in, but not dabble in as if play and not have any depth or ability and technique. Dabble in is like, oh, I can take on this skill and I can make it my own. I can work with it. I can embed this process over here, tweak two aspects of it over here. And I don't even have to create a structure around it. I can just flow and allow these things to collaborate with me internally and be expressed into the world. I love this and how the Gene Keys puts it. Encompasses learning and acquiring new techniques. This is versatility and skills. But true versatility occurs when you transcend technique. Skills and techniques become a ladder to your true self. They serve as a bridge to higher consciousness. So if we looked at it in a visual way, in the shadow of indifference, when we're really focused on being aligned with and like really deepening our expertise in a specific skill, technique, structure, system, whatever it is, we're very vertical in our thinking and our approach and how we do learning and what we show up and we offer into the world. It's this very vertical approach. In versatility, we are like playing with, dabbling with, using, working with all of these different blended expressions of things, skills, techniques. And so it's a horizontal field. There's a lot that we can access and work with here. What we find is that there's a lot more dynamic energy. There's a lot more enthusiasm. There's a lot more play and creativity inside of this gift of versatility. There's more ability for you to show up and be different, which is what we were like looking at as one of the elixirs in the Shadow of Indifference. But we also find that this ends up having us serve the whole and humanity on a whole new level, because it's allowing us to like actually show up in our full expression and be our purpose through these different structures, modalities, techniques, whatever they are. We're able to, no matter what situation that we're in, no matter who we're serving, no matter what the day looks like, effortlessly and naturally just give and work with these concepts together so that they just flow out from us in a way of service. Service to other and the whole betterment of humanity. And then we start to grow the ability to tune into any gift from within all 64 gene key gifts within the morphogenetic field. So let's pause here and think about this for a second. We've been exploring every day in Shadow School, shadow level of frequency, like they call it a frequency band or a vibratory field, a gift frequency band, and a siddhi, which is like a divine gift or a state of pure beingness, pure consciousness frequency band. Each of these has kind of its collective energetic field that all of the shadows live in, or all of the gifts are in, or all of the siddhis are in. They kind of like play in the same playground. Let's look at it that way. What's interesting here is the 16th gene key is suggesting that the more we step into the gift of versatility, where we are not identified with, attached to, or limited by one particular skill or gift or technique or whatever it is, the more we have enthusiasm, the more we are expressing, dabbling, allowing these gifts to move through us instead of to keep us stuck in classified, organized, labeled boxes, the more ability we have to tune into any gift within the morphogenetic field. So here we are in the gift of versatility. Yesterday, we were in the gift of magnetism, which is all about being in resonance with the earth and being more magnetic and trusting in a natural field. So we could harness that gift. What else do we got? We got on 14, the gift of competence. Basically having the quality of someone who loves what we're doing. Deep enthusiasm, efficiency, flair, flexibility, being able to use our whole mind, responding spontaneously and simultaneously to what we're doing and listening in the moment. Being a natural teacher. There are gifts that we can tap into without having to spend our whole lives plodding and plugging away at them like we did in the Shadow of Indifference. If we can tap into this gift of versatility in the energetic field it exists in, we could potentially access any of the 64 gene key gifts here and play with it and work with it, breathe life into it, into what we're doing. The gift level of frequency is an energy field you enter into rather than being defined by a set of skills. So we don't have a skill for magnetism, for example. Instead, we are in the field of the gift of magnetism, which allows us to have a different ability there. There's a different beingness available to us there. Same here with this gift of versatility. We have a different beingness of spontaneously and effortlessly being able to naturally work with gifts we possess or that are available to us in front of us at any given moment. I just think that's beautiful to think about that. That's something to contemplate for sure. Let's talk a little bit about the Siddhi of Mastery. Because this is having me already think about the little story that I want to share that came up when I was contemplating this. So we have the gift of versatility where we can like pull and draw from and access in this energetic field, all gift. So there's a big playfulness here. There's so much life there. There's so much enthusiasm there. In the Siddhi of Mastery, just like many cities, we have a bit of a paradox where everything that we've kind of just like found and won for ourselves, the new knowledge, the new abilities that we've just won, dissolve back away as we're more into unity consciousness. So here our identity is erased and we become a vessel for life. So think about the Siddhi of Mastery, not as you have mastered something specific, or you are especially good at one thing, or even that you have mastered this concept of versatility or whatever it may be. This is really like you. And when I say your vessel, it's your heart and your soul. Like you are fully, as this human being, a vessel for life and whatever needs to come through. So all learning ends here. There is no more pursuit of learning and expansion or evolution. We're just literally allowing life to happen through us. And the thing that we become a master of here is living life at its zenith. And there's one concept here, which I love, which is this magical ability. So it looks like for those that are touching into this Siddhi of Mastery that they have magical abilities. And it activates the blueprints of mastery of all human fields of endeavor. So it sounds a little bit like what we just talked about in the gift of versatility, being able to access different gifts in the same field. Here, this is like we can spontaneously be a vessel for and have abilities in an area that we've never studied before. But because we are in this Siddhic frequency band, where we are dissolved as an individual identity, and we are now part of, and we recognize that we're a part of all human identities and all identities, this oneness, potentially you can conceptually understand that you could have and access the ability of another facet of the human experience where someone has become an expert piano player, and you could be the vessel for that ability, even though this human body has never played the piano before. So this reminded me of the scene in the Matrix movies where they like download programs into Neo, you know, like they download Kung Fu and he's like over there practicing like in his mind. And then when the program's done running, he now in his body is like a Kung Fu master. That's what's coming through for me on this. That's kind of the analogy of this. Like all ability, all gift, all mastery of all levels, of all skills and techniques exists in this unified field of consciousness. Whether we have lived it in this body in this lifetime or not, it exists. And in this Siddhic state of mastery, we have the ability to tap into and to access, like through the Akashic field, basically, all of the information, skill, and ability, even though we didn't possess it or develop it in this body in this lifetime. And could be a Kung Fu master or a concert pianist or whatever needs to move through us, through our life at that moment. And I think that's so fun to think about, actually. And I think the only thing to notice here, that it's kind of a caveat. So this is not just like for funsies, right? Or so that when we get to this state, we can access the things that we want that we never learned, or like there is no personal agenda here at this level. When we're in indifference, we're really focused on structure, skill, what certifications do I need in order to live my life, to have a living, to do, you know, to follow the path. When we're in the gift of versatility, it becomes a lot more about how do I work and play with and breathe life into, through my unique essence, all of the gifts that are available that I may need to pull on from time to time as I am serving others and humanity as a whole. When we get to the Siddhi of Mastery here, the only purpose our powers and abilities have is in service to the whole. There is no individual power. In the gift, there's still a little bit of like having this individual that gets to dabble and express. But in the Siddhi, there is no more individual. There is no personal agenda whatsoever. It is simply that you are a conduit for whatever will serve the whole. And this is where you get to be the master of a life well lived. So people that are living in this state probably look like they have very simple lives. Like we keep getting to this point where I explain the Siddhi, and then it's like, I'm sure you could think of people that you've come across that maybe haven't touched the state where they're downloading Kung Fu, but they're radiating peace, or, you know, they're accessing some Siddhic state. And it usually is among the most humble of humans on the earth that are living very simple lives. And what they are doing is they are becoming masters of life itself, of life well lived. And life well lived is not all of the trappings of modern society that we have created and constructed this illusion that we're living in. It is discovering the mastery of ordinariness in our own lives, and knowing where and how we focus and invest our time and awareness in the present moment. I think that's really the key throughout these 3 different frequency bands, certainly through all the gene keys, but in these 3, that for me is a huge connector. In indifference, we have so much noise and interference that is keeping us, so many excuses that are keeping us from doing what is essential, which is being in the present moment where all of potential and possibility lives. We're so focused on structures, on other people taking care of that thing over there, I'm not going to worry about it, on having our own skills and showing up a certain way. There is just nothing. We are on our own agenda. In the gift of versatility, think about this for a second. You cannot be naturally expressing gifts and moving and working with different gifts in this field unless you are in the present moment. You cannot be naturally blending modalities and techniques and playing with them in a way that is effortless in the moment to serve others unless you are actually present in a state of being in the moment. And when we get to this Siddhi where we have the individual personal power and personal identity taken away, and we are simply a vessel for what comes through us in life, and the point is to be a master of living life at its zenith, at the full expression, living a life well lived, we can only do that in the ordinary, in the present moment. So that for me is like the big connector throughout all of this. So I have a couple of questions to leave you with today that I wrote down last night as I was contemplating. What calls you out of your indifference? Where in your life are you experiencing or sitting in a state of indifference? Your job and your relationships, where you're living, it could be any number of things. What you're not pursuing, the dreams that you're not living, where you're fully not being in your authentic truth and purpose. What will call you out of that indifference? Where can you find enthusiasm? Where can you cultivate enthusiasm, even if it's in something very ordinary, that can move you out of that indifference? And then what calls you into life mastery? Was the other question I wrote down last night. How can you invest your time and awareness in the essential, which is the present moment, in a way such that your beingness is so natural and you're simply showing up. You're being a vessel for life and spirit. And you are living life with mastery. What will call you into life mastery? Yeah. You're saying if we don't dream, we don't exist. Yes, for sure. And also, if we don't actually take action and move out of our indifference and get on the field and bring our dreams to life, they just stay dreams. So that's what I will leave you with. Thank you all for joining me today on Shadow School. I will be back tomorrow with episode 17. We can dive into yet another amazing Gene Key experience. And looking forward to the weekend. I don't know about you. And having a little space to be in the present moment. Thank you all so much. I will see you tomorrow.